What's up, everyone? This is the Nuts and Bolts Podcast, and I'm your host, the one James, here with our amazing co-host, Airball.
Hey, guys.
And Michael Gritz.
What it do?
And we're here to give you the nuts and bolts of the Standard and Pioneer formats each and every week. But first, let me talk to you about the sponsor of the podcast, CoolStuffInc.com. Using code James5, you can save 5% off of anything in the store, sealed product, singles, anything you can ever need in Magic the Gathering. They have it. Go save yourself some hard-earned money and go to CoolStuffInc.com today. That brings us into the upkeep of today's episode. The jargon, of course, once again, we're going to talk about chump blocking and chump attacking today. Ooh, okay. This is a block. Talking about chump blocking specifically, a block made solely to preserve the blocking player's life total, where the blocking creature dies without killing the attacking creature. Chump attacking is wanting or needing to do something, whether it's either killing your opponent or killing a planeswalker or what have you, getting an attack trigger, where you know that your creature is going to get blocked and die without trading with the other creature. Give me a situation, either one of you. I guess I'll go to Airball on whether on some chump attacks that you do, or maybe, I don't know, some chump blocks.
Yeah, I mean, chump attacks are usually when you want some sort of incidental benefit from the attack. So, like, if you have in standard Fable of the Mirrorbreaker token, and you swing with that into a bigger creature, you know the token's going to die, but you'll get a treasure token out of the deal, and ramping from 3 to 5 can be valuable enough where you're willing to do that.
Yeah, Michael, give me a chump block situation.
Yeah, chump block situation. You know, when you want to make, block, you just throw one of your low value creatures in front of something, whether to preserve your life total or to maintain your board state, as far as like you want to make sure that your planeswalker doesn't die. You can put a creature in front of it that you feel is of lower value than either your life total or the planeswalker you have on board. So I would say that's a pretty decent chump blocking type of thing.
Yeah, now we know we're all experts here on chump blocking and chump attacking. I'm going to go a little off script here and say, hey, Airball, how was your holidays? Michael, how was your holidays? I know we had a couple of weeks off of the podcast to catch up with family life and everything. What's going on? What are you in a new place? Airball, what's up with life in the past couple of weeks?
Life has been being stranded in a few different airports trying to get back from Canada. It has not been great. Finally made it back down to the States, though. Yes, I got to see my family. I got to eat lots of good food. Now I have to work it off.
Yikes. Michael, what'd you do?
This is a different holiday for me. Some stuff in my life have changed, so it was a kind of a lonely holiday, but I made the best of it. Did some skiing and some snowboarding. Finally got down my first black diamond on some skis, in control and with some speed. So pretty happy about that. And then just try to like hang out with people here or there just to kind of stave off the holiday loneliness. But we did it. We got through it. 2023 is here. I
have a unique situation where I go to like 3 different places all on Thanksgiving Day and on Christmas too. So I'm like at my dad's, and then I go to for lunch, and then I go to like my fiance's for like a after lunch thing. Like she has lunch/dinner. I don't know what you call that, like a dinner or something at like 3 or 4. And then my mom's house, they eat at like 7. So I make sure to, I don't know. I don't think I know how to like eat a decent portion size if I know that I have 2 huge meals coming up after. So I'm just the most stuffed possible at the end of the day, because I don't want to make anyone feel bad. It's like, I don't know. I feel like if I don't eat a lot of their food, that'll make them feel bad. I don't know if it comes with being like some of my family's Italian, and my fiance's family is Hispanic. So I feel like it would be just like disrespectful to like not eat their food.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It is, yeah. And but you know what? I'm happy that I was lonely. I didn't have to go through any of that torture. So
So yeah,
I grew up with an Italian nonna too, so I know exactly what you're going through.
And it's not even like, it's like also like I don't want to be disrespectful, but I also know that like they know that too. Like if they don't eat this, I feel disrespected.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, I had a very eventful time as well. But let's go ahead and step into what we're talking about today. We have a cool Keep or Mulligan episode, Pioneer Edition, and we're going to talk about Rakdos Midrange, both playing with Rakdos Midrange against other decks, playing the mirror match, and also playing other decks against Rakdos. And we have a few examples and a few different poll results on whether you people think you should mulligan or think you should keep. So we're going to go into that right now. We have like 5 different situations we're going to go over, and strap in and let us know either on Twitter or let us know in the YouTube comments what you think, if you think you would mulligan on such certain situations, and whether you think you would have kept and why. So let's start out with situation number 1. We're playing Rakdos Midrange and in Pioneer, and you are on the play against an unknown opponent. And your hand is Thoughtseize, Kroxa, another Kroxa, Castle Lochthwain, Blood Crypt, another Blood Crypt, and a Haunted Ridge. I personally don't play 2 Kroxas in my deck, but this is the deck list we're going with. I'm going to go first. Okay, if I'm Rakdos Midrange and I'm on the play and I see Blood Crypt, Thoughtseize, and a 2-drop. I don't know. I'm snap keeping it. But I mean, that's just me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm greedy or something, but like, I'm keeping this because you have Thoughtseize turn 1 and Kroxa turn 2, and you have 2 draws until you can draw literally anything, and you have a Castle Lochthwain. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get there. I'm usually an aggressive / greedy keeper, but that's just me. So I'm going to go to Michael, since you're also the Rakdos aficionado. Do you keep this or do you mulligan this?
Hell no, I don't keep this. I ship this thing so ultra fast. I don't even blink. The reason is we're on the play and we are Rakdos, and like Rakdos, almost no matter what format it is, you are a good deck because you have low costed interaction and low costed proactive plan, and you definitely want to be enacting those type of stuff. Croaks is not good enough of a proactive plan because it doesn't really affect the board, and you're already doing a Thoughtseize initially, and you don't know what you're playing against either. So, your turn 1 definitely has to be Thoughtseize, and then your turn 2 is Kroxa, and you hope that you've drawn something else. And doing a lot of hope with Rakdos is not the best. You kind of want to at least have something to kind of get yourself going. If maybe this was the same hand but with a Blood Tithe Harvester, I'd be more interested, because if we draw more lands, we can maybe draw something else. Blood Tithe Harvester is also a proactive game plan. So, if one of these cards was a Blood Tithe Harvester, as far as like even like any card of these was a Blood Tithe Harvester, other than Thoughtseize rather, this would probably be a keep. And then we also need to keep in mind that we don't know what we're playing against, so our opponent could be aggro, and against aggro, this is a super, super, super bad hand, because we're taking a whole bunch of damage because we're Thoughtseizing and Blood Cripping, depending on how things play out, and then we don't have access to easy mana on our turns, 1 through 3, and then against something that was more control, if it ends up turning to more towards a control thing, you're not being proactive. So even against a control matchup, yeah, they're losing their cards, but then they get to start choosing what they're discarding once you're doing Kroxa 2 and 3. So like the control mirror is going to be like, or the control person will probably be a little bit happy because it's like you're enacting their game plan, which is playing the long game. So those are my thoughts at first.
All right, well, rip us both apart.
Oh, I'm not going to rip Michael apart. I'm totally on the same page as him. I think this is the easiest mull. Like, you're against an unknown opponent, so most likely you're up against Rakdos. This hand is terrible against Rakdos, right? Thoughtseize is a pretty bad card in the mirror. Kroxa, you have 2 of them. It's not a huge inconvenience to be Kroxa'd on turn 2. You have 6 or 7 cards that you might want to discard if you're the opponent at that point. It's not really an inconvenience. It's not coming back anytime soon. You're not filling the graveyard. Castle Lochthwain is probably one of the more important cards in the mirror, but if you can't stick an early threat and you're just sort of waiting for the top of your deck to bail you out, that's not something that these mid-rangey Rakdos decks do very well. They don't top deck super well. They need to have a proactive plan, and they need to kind of close the game out quickly before other decks go over the top of them. So I'm totally with Michael on this one. I think this is a mull.
Okay, I agree with you that Thoughtseize is bad in the mirror match, but Thoughtseize on turn 1 is not bad in the mirror match. It's just bad when you're both top decking and you're top decking Thoughtseize. That's the reason why it's bad in the mirror, because you're both gonna have like no cards in hand like pretty fast. I think, right?
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean Thoughtseize on 1 is the best it's ever going to be in the mirror. I just don't think it's that great either way.
I think actually, if game one Thoughtseize taking like a Fable the Mirror Breaker in the mirror match, like if you're against control, I think I still like the hand, because you're gonna get rid of 3 cards out of their hand, and you have a castle locked when to refill your hand. And against the only way this hand really punishes you if you're against like mono red or like mono white aggro. I think against the mirror you're still like fine, and I'm taking into account I'm taking into account, you know, draw steps, but I'm probably like way more liberal when it comes to like drawing, to like draw steps after I see an opening hand than most people are. I'm like, I don't know, like Seth Manfield in that way. It's just like always keep. But if I see 4 lands and 3 spells and I have a turn 1 Thoughtseize, I'm like super inclined to keep no matter what the spells are, unless they're like all 4 drops.
James, here's an exercise for you. Change 1 card in this hand to make it worse.
Change a card in this hand to make it worse into a different card. Yeah. Okay, I'll change Thoughtseize into like Invoke Despair.
Okay. So now you're waiting till turn 5 to
you want me to change 1 card in this hand to make it worse, or like a couple of cards?
I think my point is that I think there are very few ways to make this hand worse. If you're trying.
I think
the average 6-card hand is probably better.
I think if you replace Thoughtseize with Fatal Push, I still keep it. If you replace Thoughtseize with any creature, I keep it. If you replace Thoughtseize with like Shieldred, like maybe I mulligan. But anything other than a 4-drop, a 5-drop, a 4-drop or a 5-drop or another land, a 5th land, then I think I would mulligan all of those. But then I keep this hand.
Additionally, another thing that we can do is, what are your best draws?
That's actually the reason why I keep this hand. And we won't take this long on all of them, but I just want to
what are your best draws?
Well, my best draws, okay, that's the reason why I keep this, is because almost all of my draws are good.
I need you to tell me what your best draws are. I don't need you to tell me almost anything I draw is the best card. I need you to tell me.
What are my best draws? Okay,
correct.
Bloodtithe Harvester, Graveyard Trespasser. If you're playing Liliana of the Veil, that. Let's see, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Let's see. Like anything that's not a land, basically. Almost anything that's not a land except for like another Thoughtseize, because you already have like 2 Croxus in hand too.
Yeah, but you have 3 more Thoughtseizes in your deck, right?
Well, yeah, but you have more of all the other cards that I just named.
No, but you have 3 Thoughtseizes, and you still have more lands in your deck. The Rakdos deck runs how much lands again?
20. I run 25 right now, because it's really important to hit the 3rd land drop in a lot of matchups, to hit your Graveyard Trespasser, or Mirror Breaker, stuff like that. But
so that means if you have that much, you have like 28 cards that are bad draws, maybe more than 28, almost half your deck are bad draws. And the other half are good. So you're still kind of not it. You're still like, this is something I've been learning and through coaching and reading articles, but like you sometimes need to think what is going to be your best draws, or what's going to be your likely draws. Likely draws is what you need to kind of think of when you're doing a keep or mull. And so you can run, I'm not saying be a savant and try and figure out percentages and everything, but just do a quick like mental mathing of like, all right, here are the worst draws I can do, there are the best draws I can have. What are the some quick percentages, quick fractional math that we're going to do.
Oh yeah, I got you on that one.
Right. And so from that, it's like, well, I'm 50-50ing it. And I don't think 50-50ing it is good enough to keep a 7 like this with unknown information. So to me, it's an easier mulligan when I think of it in that concept. However, if there was something else like a Bloodtithe Harvester, or in your case, you love playing Liliana, or something like a Fable Mirror Breaker, and it was one of the cards here, well, then our draws get a little bit better, because there's obviously ways that we can start manipulating our draws from that point forward, and turns the 50% into, less than 50. So now our good draws are more 52, 53, 54% more likely, which is objectively a better way to think about this and think about what we want to keep.
With 4 lands in your opening hand like this, playing 24 or 25 lands in Rakdos, your chances of drawing another land off the top is like in the low 40%, low 40s. So you have like a 50 like high 50s% chance that you don't draw land. There's still those 3 Thoughtseizes in the deck, of course, that I think you were gonna say.
Yes, and the Sheoldred and the Invoke Despair, and these are all bad draws. So it's not that you're not just trying to not pull a land.
I think you have a lot of bad draws, like you're saying. I think you also have a lot of fine draws, which I think James is saying makes the hand keepable, and I think it's not. Right? I think Graveyard Trespasser is fine, but it's not going to like salvage the game for you. Liliana is fine; it's not going to salvage the game. I think there's only one actively good draw in the deck here, and that's Fable.
And Bloodtide.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, even Misery Shadow is really good here. Like turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Misery Shadow. Like, start playing the game. I don't know. For me, I've been burned too many times by like mulliganing a hand like this, and then maybe it's, I don't know whether it's a confirmation bias or something, but I've been burned too many times with having it with like mulliganing a hand like this, and I draw like 6 lands and a spell, or like 6 spells and a land on my next one. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to 5 when I could have kept the 7. And I like, there's something super appealing to me about like lands and spells. Ooh, like I'm just like, if I have lands and spells and I turn 1 Thoughtseize, all right, I'm keeping it. But anyways, I don't usually play 2 Croxes anyway, but with this specific hand, it's super close. We have the Keeper Mull with the people that voted. 44% keep, 56% mull. So a little bit, it's like pretty close, but the majority said mulligan. All right, moving on to situation number 2. You're playing Is It Creativity, and you're on the draw versus Rakdos Midrange in game 1. Your hand's the following. Oh, it's in game 1. How do you know you're against Rakdos Midrange if you're on the draw in game 1? That's an interesting situation.
Tournament or something.
You're in a tournament. You've been open deck list.
Open deck list tournament, or you've been scouting the room. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, your hand is Fable the Mirrorbreaker, Secrets of the Key, Xenagos God of Revels, Otawara Soaring City, 2 Stormcarved Coasts, and a mountain. Do you keep or mulligan? Secrets of the Key says it's a 1 mana instant. If you don't know what that is, investigate. If it was cast from the graveyard, investigate twice instead. It has a flashback cost of 3 and a blue. So, you're against Rakdos Midrange. Fable the Mirrorbreaker is awesome. You don't want to... is awesome against Rakdos, even on the draw. You do against Rakdos want like some kind of early interaction, like a, like just a 1 mana red removal spell or something. Whereas Fable is really good. It's a 4-land hand. You have a Xenagos in your opening hand. You don't want to draw that ever, right? Because you can't really get that out of your hand, so you can creativity out of the deck. So I'm gonna say it's really close because you have the Fable, but I'm gonna say mulligan. I'll go to you, Airball, after this one. Would you keep or mull?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a mulligan. I think your analysis is exactly right. I think Fable is a really good card in the mirror, but in game 1, when you're playing Is It Creativity, I guess we should back up and explain what the deck is trying to do. Is It Creativity in Pioneer is a deck that's trying to cast Indomitable Creativity, targeting 2 creatures or treasures, and put Xenagoth, God of Revels, and what's the other one?
Worldspine Worm.
Worldspine Worm. Yeah. The 15/15. So you creativity both of those into play, you get a hasty 30/30 with trample that kills the opponent in 1 shot. Most of these decks are only running 1 copy of each because drawing them sucks so much. Most of them don't have the means to actually cast them from hand, so they're pretty much a dead draw. And they only have a few ways to put them back in the deck with cards like Valakut Awakening and like Cathartic Pyre, or sorry, not Cathartic Pyre. The other 2 damage 1, 2 mana 1. That's the one, yeah, where you can put the card on the bottom of your deck. And I think especially when you're playing against Rakdos, having this card in your opening hand with no way to put it back in the deck quickly leads to it getting Thoughtseized. And all of a sudden, because you're so all in on this combo, you have no way to win the game. So I think it's a mull. I think this is just asking for trouble.
I also do want to say that you don't really want to... If you know you're playing against Rakdos and you have your opening 7, I'm more likely to keep a bad opening 7 against Rakdos because, I mean, if you're getting Thoughtseize for your best card, you might as well not mulligan. You're like going to 6 anyway. But this specific hand with Xenagos in the hand, if that gets Thoughtseize, you lose. But I'll go over to you, Michael, for this one. Do you keep or mulligan?
Mulligan. That's easy. Once I figured out the Xenagos thing, even before I learned about Xenagos being 1 copy, I was kind of very hesitant. You're not doing literally anything. in the beginning turns of the game. Your mana isn't the greatest either. So if you draw something that was like good on interaction, I mean, I guess you can Auto War or Mountain for turns 1 and 2, and then go into Storm Course, but it's still not great. And yeah, you're all in on your Secrets of the Key thing, and then like you were mentioning, you're all in on Xenagos. So there's no game plan here. There's a zero amount of game plan in Magic. Like, the best thing you can do if you're ever going to start to learn how to play better Magic is just learn your game plan and what you're supposed to be doing, and learn your opponent's game plan. And from those two, the very basics, this is just bad. You mulligan it.
Yeah. One of the things that one of like the paradigms that I have about keeping your mulliganing is like how many subsets of cards do you need for this hand to be good? You need like exactly one of the cards that you were saying. You need a Fire Prophecy or a Valakut Awakening. And Fire Prophecy is the best out of those, but you have to draw a specific card, which is very bad. You also have to not get Thoughtseize. My Rakdos example from before, you need kind of like, you know, a very wide subset of cards, which led me to keep that hand, even though the majority of people said mulligan. But as we see here for the keeper mulligan, keep is 36% and mulligan is 64%. So a little higher mulligan on the second situation here. Moving on to the situation number 3, you're playing Mono Green Devotion, and you're on the play versus Rakdos Midrange in game 3. Your hand is the following: Llanowar Elves, Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, Cavalier of Thorns, Lair of the Hydra, Forest, and Nykthos. I am going to say, and you're on the play or on the draw? You're on the play. Okay. That means Llanowar Elves has a little bit less chance of getting Thoughtseized, but it's probably going to get Fatal Pushed, or Blood Chief's Thirsted, or whatever your opponent's playing. And then you're left on literally nothing for 5 turns. You have a Lair of the Hydra, a Nykthos, 2 Forests, and you're like hoping off the top for specific cards that aren't your other 5 and 6 drops in the deck. And there's a lot of them. Whereas Sky Sovereign Console Flagship and Cavalier of Thorns are great against Rakdos, no matter how you put them on the battlefield. Your Llanowar Elves being susceptible to dying is enough to mulligan this for me. If this hand had maybe 2 Llanowar Elves, or a Llanowar Elves and a Wilflow Haven, I would consider keeping it, but maybe still not. Do you keep or mulligan this Airball?
Yeah, I think this is a classic trap hand. Like, if you're just playing on Arena or Moto, it's easy to just say, oh, land, spells, elf, boat, keep. But if you look at it for longer than 5 seconds, I think you're exactly right. The elf, especially in game 3, when Rakdos brings in its extra kill spells to deal with the elves, the elf's gonna die. And Nykthos is kind of bad because you don't have any devotion. You don't have any way of getting to your 5 drops before turn 5. You're just gonna get torn apart. This is, I think, an easy mulligan.
Michael, tell me you're gonna keep this. No,
I mean, it's weird. I think this is weird. It's almost kind of the fact that like you have 4 lands that like I don't know what to do. No, it's a mulligan.
You're about to trap yourself.
No, I know. It's close though, because the reason why it's close is because they're unlike the other keeper mull hands that we've been seeing, because you have access to 4 lands straight up and a lot of your draws are pretty powerful. It could be and then you're likely to draw into them. Like, you're likely to get some sort of action that's going to be relevant. It can be perhaps keepable. Even though our Llanowar Elves is most likely going to be killed, but we are on the play. But like, you know, your Karn does pretty well. Your Old Growth Troll does pretty well. Kiora, if that's still the card that these decks are playing, is going to do pretty well. And there's just, and then like, what's the other card? The Nissa enchantment. I forget what it's called.
Oath of Nissa.
Oath of Nissa. Like, so while yes, it's not great, I think going back, I'm just gonna like play devil's advocate and say I'll keep it, because there's a lot of stuff that you can draw that is likely to be drawn that will make this hand good, just because we have our Nykthos, our signature card for this deck, and you also have access to layer if things kind of get a little spicy, which can be a blocker or something to kind of give you another turn. And then we have a lot of good draws. And you don't want to. The point I was getting to is you don't want to mulligan down towards Rakdos. In especially since they're probably going to be some powerful things and thought seizing you and destroying like your first creature or so. And nowhere else being a lightning rod isn't the worst thing in the world, because then they're not developing their first turn, so that kind of gives you maybe a tiny bit of wiggle room, even though you would rather it stay on the board. So I think I'm more inclined to keep this hand, even though it doesn't really do anything. If it was 3 lands and then maybe another high costed card that we couldn't cast, then I would ship it. But because we have access to 4 mana just straight up, I'm kind of a little bit more interested. I could be incorrect, but that's what I'm going to say.
I think optimistically you're going to get 1 turn of use out of the Llanowar Elves. You are on the play after all. It has to be exactly Fatal Push. Absolutely. And so if we had a 3-drop, I think that would be enough to make me keep.
That's exactly
we don't have anything to do with 3 mana.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. You have one. This is like high risk, high reward. Like this is the highest risk, high reward hand possible. If they don't remove your Llanowar Elves, you are like, and you draw like Kiora or Old Growth Troll off the top, you are winning the game. Like you already, like you almost already won the game. You have a Nykthos, you have Llanowar Elves. They didn't kill it. Like they have to have like a Bone Crusher Giant, and at that point you were on the play. You already have a 3-drop, and they just use all of their mana on their own turn to stomp your Llanowar Elves, and then you get another draw, and then all of a sudden your next draw you're casting Sky Sovereign and Cavalier. You've already won the game. So this is like the most high risk, high reward hand possible. And maybe you can live life on the edge and keep this hand because of that. But if you don't draw a 3-drop on your next turn, you likely lose. And also, even if you did have a 3-drop in this hand and you kept it, and they got rid of the Llanowar Elves and they happen to draw Fatal Push, you are waiting 2 more turns to cast your 3-drop, and that doesn't feel very good. And you could get out tempoed after that. So I'm gonna still keep my mulligan decision here. 36% say keep, 64% say mulligan. But the 36% of the people that said keep could definitely get rewarded with the high risk.
I do want to make one more point before we move on to the next one, which is that I'm more likely to mulligan sketchy hands when I have a good matchup. My average 6 is probably still good enough to beat my good matchup, which is Rakdos Midrange, with solid play. And I also think that the mono green deck in particular also just mulligans very well. You don't actually need 7 cards in your opening hand with mono green, because all you need to do is stick 1 4-mana permanent like Karn or a Boat or a Cavalier, and then everything just sort of cascades from there.
Yeah, quite literally cascading. You cast like so many spells in a turn. So my philosophy playing Rakdos Midrange against mono green, and I have a positive win rate against mono green now after like figured out the matchup, as I've said in other episodes, if you listen to those in the audience here. But my philosophy against mono green is, kill all of their mana dorks and don't let them do mono green things. That's what I say. Don't let them do mono green things. And as soon as they start doing mono green things, you have to burn them out from there with like a stomp or whatever. And if you can't, you lose. It's just that simple. There's too much card draw, too many 5-drops happening, and too many spells happening. And all of a sudden, they might not even kill you with the combo, but they'll put 4 Old Growth Trolls in play, and you'll never win from there. But anyway, majority of the people say mulligan. Let's go over to situation number 4. You are playing Rakdos Midrange, and you're on the draw versus Rakdos Midrange in game 3. Your hand is the following: Blood Crypt, Powered Kill, Fatal Push, Swamp, and a Sokenzan, Crucible of Defiance. This is a 4-land hand with 3 removal spells. You're on the draw. Powered Kill in my deck is not Powered Kill because of the Angels matchup, but it's Go for the Throat instead. But that's here nor there. But
because you stole my Heartless Act.
That's true. You're gonna bring that up every episode, aren't you?
I am right.
You're all right. I can't say that you're wrong about that. Here's 4 lands. Oh my goodness. I mean, gosh. On the draw is the only situation where I can even consider one even iota of keeping this. If I was on the play, this is an instant mulligan. On the draw, the opponent's going. There's probably no Thoughtseizes game 3 in the mirror. So they're not looking at your hand. You have a lot of chances to draw any creature or fable or whatever, and you know that their turn 2 Misery Shadow or Bloodtithe Harvester is getting killed. You know their turn 3 Graveyard Trespasser or Fable of the Mirrorbreaker token is getting killed. You know their Sheoldred's also getting killed. And they're on the play, so they're the one trying to be the aggressor towards you. And a lot of the times in the Rakdos Midrange mirror match, you have a lot of time, turns like 2, 3, 4, 5, because your opponent, you're just staring at each other, trying like who's going to play into the removal spell first. And I think hitting your land drops is very important in that situation. You don't have a Reckoner Bankbuster in this hand, though. You don't have a boat. You don't have a power spell. You don't have a fable. But God, I mean, long pause here, but I'm keeping this. Airball?
I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I think I'm going to mull anyway. I think that in game 3, a lot of the air from both players' decks has been removed. So this is actually kind of close to like the nut low possible hand you could start with. Everything in your hand is a 1-for-1, and you know your opponent is likely to have Fable of the Mirror Breaker or Boat or Invoke Despair or something like that. And if any of those things land, like a Reckoner Bankbuster, like opponent plays Reckoner Bankbuster on 2 and you just cry into your drink. This is not going to go well for you. You don't want to be 1-for-1ing yourself. That's the reason that you took Thoughtseizes out in the first place. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of traction with this hand. I think you're going to lose pretty quickly.
Okay. Michael, I have more things to say. Don't get me wrong, but Michael, what do you think about this? Are you keeping or mulliganing?
I'm gonna keep.
Why?
Yeah. I am banking. I'm banking on my opponent having some sort of creatures that they want to put down, and I want to kill those creatures and then start top decking from there. And hopefully that is enough to kind of pivot the game into my favor. Because I think we keep talking about like what are we going to draw into, and from being on the play and wanting to kind of remove stuff from our opponent and then hope that our deck gives us something proactive to do, I think it's much more likely going to happen with this hand, because we know we have a lot of our reactive spell. If we draw into more reactive spells, that'd be pretty bad. But more than likely, I think we're going to be drawing into something that's proactive or hitting our land drops, which is something that we're interested in doing. So I think I'm much more happy to keep, because I know, in a draw game, in a mid-range like game, and we're 1-for-1ing each other, I think it's pretty important to somehow be able to find out how to play the game in a pace where you're removing anything that they're doing, and then eventually able to draw something to kind of pivot the game into your favor and then start taking advantage from there. And I think this hand lends itself into that. And we're kind of set up for our later turns and having early interactions pretty nice. I think you speaking into what Airball was saying, it would be pretty bad if they have a Reckoner Bankbuster or something else that we can't interact with. But I still think I'm pretty interested in this hand. And if I'm the Rakdos player playing game 3, I'm definitely changing how my cards are based on me being on the play. So I want a proactive game plan. So like against an opponent that I would feel is wise enough, they should be playing something in a proactive game plan and trying to do that. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, James, that I'll probably end up keeping this.
Okay, so I understand what Airball's saying about, if they have Reckoner Bankbuster or Fable the Mirror Breaker, it's just a little bit medium, which totally I understand.
Yeah, it's not a little bit medium.
It's
a
bad.
Disaster.
Okay,
Like,
I understand that. One thing that we do have to take into account, though, is that we're on the draw. We have an additional draw. We have like 3 more draws until their Fable the Mirror Breaker ever happens, or at least 2 more draws. Right, turn 1, turn 2. Yeah, 3 more draws until we actually have like to deal with that if it comes down. They have to have the Fable, or they have to have the Reckoner Bankbuster. But anything other than those 2 cards, you're set, and you also have the additional draw. Not saying that it's the best hand, that I would keep. It's probably one of the worst hands I would keep. I would love a creature in this hand. If this was 2 Blood Crypts, power killed Fable push, and 2 creatures and it was only a 2-lander, I think I'd still keep it. Because you have that extra draw to draw into your 3rd land if you don't have 3. Once again, going back to what I was saying before, about the Rakdos deck is that I personally, I don't know if I just like put too much stock in my like mirror match abilities or something, or like my Rakdos Midrange playing abilities, because it is the main deck that I play in Pioneer. That if I have a hand with lands and spells, like I feel like I can win the game. Like the way I feel like I just can't win is like I miss like 2 land drops in a row, or like I mulligan this hand and I have 1 land or 2 lands and just an unplayable hand. I'm me personally, I'm just much more inclined to keep a hand like this on the draw with lands and spells, especially removal spells. I would be much more happy with having any proactive play at all, but it's borderline, but I think this is a keep. Let's see what everyone else says. This is a 54% keep and 46% mulligan. So this is the closest one we've had so far, but the majority of people say keep out of 167 responses. So a lot of people say keep, a lot of people say mulligan, but it's one of your 50-50s. Going to the next situation, number 5 is you're on the play with mono white humans and you're in game 2 versus Rakdos Midrange. Your hand's the following: Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Wedding Announcement, Skyclave Apparition, Luminarch Aspirant, Mutavault, Plains, and Plains. I don't know about you, but if I'm on the play with a Thalia against Rakdos, I am insta-keeping. Okay? I would have to have a Thalia and 6 lands for me to mulligan. Like, you have a creature land, you have both Plains for Skyclave Apparition. I mean, maybe I would mulligan if it was like double Mutavault Plains and I had a like double Skyclave in my hand. I just have to top deck the 2nd white. But you have Wedding Announcement that is absolutely absurd against Rakdos. I feel like this isn't even a question to me whether it's a keep or mulligan. This is just like the most ideal possible. Airball?
Yeah, I'm glad that I get to keep at least 1 hand. I think I've mulled the other 4. I think you're right. I think there's like a little bit of awkwardness between Thalia and Wedding Announcement because you can't actually cast one into the other. It'll tax your own Wedding Announcement, but I think Skyclave Apparition on 3 is probably more than good enough. You even have Mutavault if the opponent actually does manage to kill all your other stuff. Wedding Announcement is a bomb in the matchup. Yeah, this is great.
Michael, give me.
Yeah.
Please don't mulligan this, Michael. Don't do it.
I'm not. I'm keeping.
No,
Yeah,
straight up keep.
For everything you folks mentioned, you're set up for. I mean, obviously you don't have a turn 1 plan, but everything after turn 1 is super nice. And necessarily, Rakdos doesn't really have anything like you skipping your turn 1 and them not using their mana because they likely are holding a removal spell and definitely probably don't have Thoughtseize, because that's pretty bad against you in the sense of you don't want to take extra damage if you're playing Rakdos against mono white. So like likely that's a big thing, right? Because we don't have our turn 1 and like a turn 1 creature. So like you basically like they don't do anything on turn 1, and then turn 2 you play Thalia, and so it makes their removal even worse that they held in their hand. So I think you're just set up. This is just it's a great hand. You're set up after turn 2, and actually game 1 and turn 1 too, because you didn't do anything. They're not going to do anything. You're kind of just set up. It's like, yeah, you said it's kind of like a perfect hand. It's great.
I mean, here's what I'm thinking: if I'm playing Rakdos Midrange and my opponent is on the play, and I know that I boarded into like every possible removal spell plus 3 copies of like the 4 mana sweeper, that exile stuff. I forgot the name off the top of my head.
Extinction
Event. I have like 3 copies of that in my sideboard. I'm like, okay, we're prepared. And I see turn 1 Plains go. I'm like, oh my goodness, we are in there, right? So I'm like, I'm playing my land, I'm holding up my Thoughtseize, and I'm like, let's freaking go. And then my opponent goes Mutavault Thalia, and I'm like, I guess I lost. because then I have to spend my next turn on going untap land, go, holding up my Fatal Push, right? And because I don't want to do it in main phase, my opponent would just play another Thalia, right? So you want to hold it for their Thalia. So my opponent goes, all right, my go, enter combat, attack with Thalia, and I'm like, all right, I guess I can't kill it, take the 2. And then my opponent goes, or you kill it and they slam Wedding Announcement. You're like, wow, I can't believe I killed that, right? But you take the damage and they're like, all right, or they go Luminarch Aspirant, enter combat or something, right? And then now you have to kill something, so you kill like the Luminarch Aspirant. But now you're still under Thalia, so then you can't cast your Fable, or you can't cast your 2 mana removal spell because of the Thalia in play. So then your whole concept of your game is like warped around this Thalia, and you can't cast your Fable yet. The only thing you can cast is like a creature on turn 2, maybe a Blood Tithe Harvester. You cast your Harvester, and they go land Skyclave Apparition, and you're like, wow, they have it all. Right? And then you go to kill their Skyclave Apparition, and you're like, sick, land Wedding Announcement, and you're like, all right, dude, you got it. The only thing that would hold that would actually be good in a Rakdos midrange deck against this specific hand is making them use all their Wedding Announcement tokens, having the kill on Thalia on turn 3 of the game, and then leave them on Luminarch Aspirant, triple Wedding Announcement token, and then Extinction Eventing on turn 4, and then leaving them with the Skyclave. But that's still giving mono white like 3 or 4 draws to draw anything else. So I think this is a slam dunk keep, of course, for mono white. And I'm generally like super sad if I'm playing Rakdos against this. Yeah, and as we see here, 92% keep and 8% mulligan. Okay, I'll actually ask you this, a little bonus action here. What do you think these 8% of people could be thinking? Like just no one drop.
I don't know. Like you've got to be drunk to pull this one. Let me ask you a question. I'm curious. You're playing Rakdos. You're on the draw. Your opponent is on mono white, and they play a plains and say go. What are the odds that turn 2 is a Thalia? What percentage of the time?
1,000%. Like, okay, I'm gonna say 99%. The other 1% is Luminarch Aspirant. That's also in this hand.
So I'm curious. Just indulge me. You have a Blood Crypt in your hand. You have a Fatal Push, and you have a Swamp. What land are you playing on one?
I think I honestly think I'm still playing the Swamp because I don't know if I can give my opponent I don't know. What if they just kept a hand of let's do this. What if my opponent's hand is Plains Mutavault, Luminarch Aspirant, Skyclave Wedding Announcement, and the Thalia is replaced with like a Brave the Elements, right? So. Or maybe the Luminarch Aspirant's a 1-drop, and they want to hold up their Brave the Elements, so they go Plains Pass, and then you go Swamp. You can't hold up your Fatal Push, and then they go Plains 1-drop, and then you go to kill it, and they Brave it. So like maybe they would hold the 1-drop in that case, playing around Fatal Push. Like that's like the only way. That's the only other option I would think that they would have outside of when they go Plains Pass. But other than that, like 99% Thalia. So I think I'm still playing the Swamp untapped. I don't know. What are you playing? Are you playing the Blood Crypt tapped?
I'm curious about what Michael thinks. He's the other Rakdos player.
Yeah, Michael, are you playing the Blood Crypt tapped or are you playing the Swamp untapped?
That's hard. I think I would probably end up playing if I had those lands in hand.
That's actually a really cool question.
Depends on the texture. Yeah, depends on the texture of the other cards in my hand, because obviously we're not mulling down to 3. But I think it's more than likely most of the time is an untapped Swamp if we have like a 1-mana. We have a single black removal, which is Fatal Push. So if we have that, then I'm just playing the Swamp and just passing it over. Otherwise, if the texture of my hand dictates something different, then I might play Blood Crypt tapped and just hope to God.
One thing I think about way more than I think I should is like, what if I top deck X card, right? And a lot of times it does work out where I top deck X card and I was rewarded by my play. So like, I'll play the untapped Swamp and like, what if I top deck a less efficient way of killing my opponent's creature and it happens to not be Thalia? Like, what if I go land, they go Luminarch Aspirant, put a counter, and I'm like, let's not Fatal Push now, let's wait, because I could draw Bone Crusher Giant off the top. And then I go Shock, and then I draw Bone Crusher Giant, and I go Shock Blood Crypt, pass, stomp Luminarch Aspirant. You know? So it's like different things like that I think you have to think about when you're considering like holding up Fatal Push or not, or even using Fatal Push on a Luminarch Aspirant, because when you're playing mono white against Rakdos, the first thing that you play, guaranteed dead, right? So are you playing are you playing the thing you care about the most first, unless it's Thalia? Like, probably not, right?
Right.
If you had 2 different options.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I think I might not even fatal push if I had it and they played Luminarch.
Right.
Of
Oh,
course,
that's the
of
case,
course.
you're playing the Blood Crypt.
What was that?
Right. If that's the case, then you're playing Blood Crypt because then there's literally no situation where you're fatal pushing on turn 1.
I mean, there's not no situation I'm fatal pushing turn. There's not like no situation, right? Because what if they play a 2-drop that has 3 toughness? Then I am fatal pushing because I don't have the option to top deck stomp.
Does such a thing exist in the mono white deck? Is there a 2-drop with 3 toughness?
There could be there. I've seen Tamik in some decks. That's a 2/3.
Oh yeah.
And
sure,
I
sure.
have also I've also seen the 2 mana 2/3 with the black kicker that adds a creature back that has lifelink. I've seen that card too. And that has 3 toughness, but I mean, obviously it's few and far between. But you honestly just like never know. But if it had 3 toughness, I do use it. If it doesn't have 2 toughness, I don't think I use it, and like hope to draw stomp off the top. But anyway, that's like super freaking nuance. But I mean, that's why you listen to a podcast, right? To get the nuance. But I do like these discussions. I could have these discussions for like an hour longer, but we don't have an hour.
I also think if we want to just quickly about the 8, because we kind of glossed over it. The 8% who are mulling, I would say they're maybe newer Magic players and they want to see a 1-drop, which this is not what they're not analyzing the resources of Magic and what's going on at a more macro level. And so they're just like, I don't have my 1-drop, therefore bad, and therefore like I might lose to my Rakdos opponent who might remove anything, and they're not thinking about Thalia and then the Rakdos player not doing anything also on their turn 1, which isn't great for the Rakdos player. So in some senses, like it might be even good that you don't play anything on turn 1. So I think that's where the 8% people are kind of lost in the sauce a little bit.
I mean, I understand being lost in the sauce with the 8%, but I have seen and heard a lot of really good players in specific decks, not necessarily mono white in Pioneer, but I've seen like let's give like Modern Humans for an example, like when Humans was a thing in 2019 before Fury was a card. Like I have seen really good players be like, okay, if it doesn't have a 1-drop, I have to mulligan. And it's just like that rigid. But I don't think this mono white deck is a deck that you need to think about that. And the 8% should have just kept. Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Well, those are actually the 5 situations we want to go over. Are there any other niche situations or keep mulligan situations that you have off the top of your head that you wanted to go over, or any other comments about these things? Like we've been like most of these hands have been like 4-landers, right? Do you have any 2-landers that you would keep, like even on the play, that with like 1-2 drop or something, and you just like have to top deck a land? Like, do you keep that hand?
I mean, yeah, depends on what we have. Like if we have another cantrip or some sort of card draw thing, then yeah, I'm more inclined to keep it. I feel like maybe Pioneer is a format where if you have less lands, depending on deck, but majority of the times if you have less lands, it's probably like if you have 2 lands and a 2-mana play, then you're probably going to be fine, and you just need to kind of figure it out from there. Where if you have like 5 lands and 2 spells, that's just not going to fly. You're just going to get run over more often than not, even if you have card draw spells. I think.
I think if I have 5 lands and 2 spells, and my spells are a Blood Tithe Harvester or Misery Shadow and a Fable, then I'm keeping.
I absolutely am not keeping that.
Fable. A Fable cures all. You must believe. You just discard the lands and draw non-lands.
Okay.
I guess I'll just make one general observation before we go then. I think that Magic has changed a lot in the last several years, and I think that whether you keep or mulligan, those decisions have changed with it, because it used to be that Magic games were about quantity, just being like the last guy standing or last woman standing with a card at the end of the day was the person who was going to win. And now with like modern Magic design, where card advantage is stapled onto almost everything, mulliganing is not nearly as punishing as it used to be. And I think you can afford to go one more hand deep to try to find a specific answer to a specific problem in a specific matchup. I think you should be more willing to mulligan now than you should have been 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. The London Mulligan, right? If people like, that is what we should probably cover next week, is the London Mulligan compared to what was the one before that, like the Vancouver Mulligan.
Vancouver
or
is right. Yeah.
So we can go over that because like some people don't know. It is relevant in Magic strategy to know what the London Mulligan is and how it has made more games not non-games of Magic, if that makes sense. So, and another thing is something that has made me improve as a Magic player, thinking about mulliganing or keeps is it sucks because like I love math and I just haven't processed it in this way for Magic. But the thing that you heard us talk about earlier in this episode, where you kind of break down what are my best draws, what are my worst draws, think about like some rough percentages in that. Luckily in Arena, if you're playing Arena, it does it for you. Just look over to the side where if you have the untapped add-on, then you can see what's going to happen there. But if you're doing this via paper or at a RCQ or something like that, you need to be able to know your deck intimately enough and know what cards are going to make this hand better and what are the rough fractions or percentages that is possible for you to draw that, including like if you have Blood Tithe Harvester, that's one more deeper, and how much turns you have to draw that. Is it going to make your hand good enough to keep? And a lot of the time that will help you be able to navigate some of these tougher decisions if you can get to a place of that math understanding and mulliganing understanding. So that's just kind of a good tip. I read this off a Jesse Robkin article not too long ago about I forgot what it was, but she was thinking about what percentages make this hand to keep, and she ran some numbers, and I was like, oh, I didn't think a Magic player back in the day told me like pros are always running the numbers in their head. They're not always, but they're like little tricks and little times you should be running numbers, and the juice is worth the squeeze to think an extra 5 seconds about this stuff. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. I do want to thank the people over at playingmtg.com for providing these situations here as well, because they did make these situations and run the keep and mulligan responses as well and the percentages of that, and give a little bit of their analysis. So if you do want to see their analysis and not ours, head over to playingmtg.com to check that out. But anyways, thank you so much to everybody for listening, and especially to those who made it this far. Make sure to give us a follow to see our next episode. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Nuts and Bolts Pod. Let us know what you would keep or mulligan, and we will see you in the top 8.
Okay, bye.
See you guys.